Good morning, Adam.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. Where are you, Adam?
In my basement.
Oh, okay.
Gonna turn the lights up. There we go.
Oh, yes, it was a dark pit, and I was trying to figure out where you were.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just down in the basement. Uh,
Ah, well, this is a pleasure having
yeah,
you.
able to make I came down with COVID on Friday, so I am banned from going to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can't go back to work till Monday, so
Ah, too bad.
uh, yeah,
Excuse me.
uh, sort of working from home, sort of just sleeping all day, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, but on the mend, starting to finally feel better, so
Oh, good.
yeah.
Did you
Have you
get it at the hospital?
Yeah, last week there was a leadership kickoff event. They had all of the managers and leaders and all those folks from all of the Yale hospitals meet
Uh-huh.
in a stadium to kind of have like, a networking event. Um so we all went to that, but it was down in Bridgeport like stadium where they do ice hockey. So the stage was set up on the ice hockey rink. It was like 40 degrees all day.
Uh,
Do you believe everyone left and was sick the next day? And, then all of a sudden, like half our leadership team came down with COVID. So I'm not the only one out. So,
no.
uh,
Wow. Morning, Bill. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So you had a mild case, Adam?
yeah, mild to medium, I think.
Yeah.
Um, it's getting better now. It was a little tough for the first few days. Like over the weekend, I basically slept Friday to Monday morning,
Yeah.
you know. So finally getting up and getting some stuff done now, though.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I this weekend was Rick's workshop. I was a little concerned about
Mm,
catching something at that, but I seem to, at least so far, be all right.
good. How was it? How was the turnout?
It all was great. We had 22 people,
Nice.
and Rick taught a very interesting. Really, it's a bagua, kind of a bagua chikung, I guess, um, called "Feeding Your Dragon,"
Mm,
and it was, I think, um, two really good things that came out of it. One was that I think everybody got a really strong sense of yin energy and its power,
mm.
which was really, I think for some people was really, um, really good. I mean, I certainly felt it. I felt the strength of it, of the power, more than I probably ever have before.
Wow.
Um, and the other thing was that the dragon has a tail. And so in all your movements, you were thinking about that tail behind you going sweeping in the opposite direction from the direction you were turning the front of your body. And of course, this is simply helping you be aware of the fact that energy is constantly, hopefully, going backwards from your body as well as forward. And that's part of how you balance and control. But this is a very kind of concrete way of beginning to feel that.
Hmm.
So that was very interesting. So it was a good afternoon. Everybody, I think, had a very good time.
Well, good. Nice. That
Yeah.
sounds like real interesting.
So it's just going to be you two today.
Okay.
Bill has a doctor's appointment he couldn't get out of. Don't we all have those? I had one yesterday.
Hmm.
And Joanne is in New York for a War Resisters League meeting
Okay.
with
Yeah.
all the.
Unfortunately, they have a lot to talk about.
You do?
No, they have a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, yes. I think they're on high alert, as it were.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, so it's just the two of you today. So, how's your letting go of turning?
So.
So so.
So. Yeah.
What?
I think I came to some difficulty with letting go of turning and twisting kind of in the shoulder region into the arm,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to, I guess, figure out how that, how that, how the twisting from the back gets to the arm, and what is happening kind of in the shoulder joint itself and the tissues surrounding it, because
Mm-hmm.
like the arm to me seems real easy, right? Because it's sticking out there, it can twist. But the muscles wrapping around and the soft tissue wrapping around the shoulder joint, the entire shoulder girdle, like how does twisting there, I guess, translate into causing the twisting in the arm? I'm not sure if that made sense.
um, sort of.
All right, let me try that. So it feels to me like for twisting up in the shoulder and the muscles in the back, to get it in the arm, really there's wrapping going on. And then once it gets into the arm, now that arm on the far side of the ball and socket joint, now the twisting of the muscle and soft tissue can actually twist the arm. But I don't know if that's conceptualizing it
No,
poorly or
I understand. I think I kind of understand, and you're you're right in that passage from the spine to the shoulder. It is wrapping, but it is also twisting, and um, I am at a loss for words and how to describe what I. um, there is even through the shoulder and the scapula area to the spine, there is a twisting that's going on. Um, and it's boy, I don't know how to. It's a very good question, which I'm not
So,
sure. I'm not sure that I can give you a clear verbal answer. It's a felt awareness.
hmm,
Um, and it's part of why when you work on twisting, it's really good to work on it in sections, working up the arm. And then when you get to the shoulder, of course, there are a lot of there are other things happening in that shoulder joint, but there is still the sense of the twisting of the muscles in the sense that um, they are pulling in and pushing out. That might be another way to think about it. Those, of course, are terms that we use in relation to bend and stretch, but the twisting does the same thing. In that, if you simply think about in the arm, when we're twisting in, it's pulling energy in the inside of the arm. And when we twist out, it's pushing energy out the yang side of the arm. Well, that sense of pulling in and pushing out with a twisting motion is going on through the shoulder and the scapula to all the way to the spine. So part of that has to do with releasing the muscles in that area. It can have some part of having difficulty feeling that, I think, is if that area is really tight. And for lots of people, the scapula area in particular is really tight. We're actually going to be talking about that a lot more today, but I understand your it's, and I feel like it isn't confusion, but not getting fully connected through there. And I think if you keep working, if you can feel the movement all the way up through the upper arm, that if you keep practicing and working on trying to keep everything open through the shoulder, that you'll gradually feel that.
Okay. All right.
There's no magic bullet. I don't know if that helps at all, but
I think so.
it's that is a difficult area for that. It's harder than opening and just basically opening and closing in a way. Harder to conceptually understand. But of course, all of those are happening at the same time. I'm not sure I can give you any more than that at the moment.
Sure.
I'll think about that one. I'm sure. Were you having that problem, Bill?
Um, I would say that I'm certainly one of those people who have always had tight shoulders.
Hmm.
So the fact that right now I am developing an awareness and a feeling of tissues moving up there makes me very happy, but it's still at a pretty indistinct stage.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I should probably take a look at an anatomy of the shoulder muscles and see what indeed I am feeling, or
Yep.
maybe.
Um, in relation to that, and really back to our discussion too, Adam, I think it's really important to be able to start from being able to lengthen all the way through that area.
Hmm.
Because if you can't release and allow the shoulder and the scapula to lengthen, then it's going to be really hard to twist.
Hmm.
So that too can be a part of it.
Hmm.
That sense of release and letting go and allowing the lengthening to happen, and focusing on the midpoint, the sense of a midpoint that you're revolving around can also help, I think.
Does that
But
does that midpoint image extend into the shoulder?
Sure.
Okay. Past the ball and socket joint?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
At least that's my sensation of it.
Well, as I say, this is a kind of a new experience for me, feeling that it is looser and more available to me. But I obviously haven't gotten a handle on it yet.
Yeah.
So,
One of the things that was interesting to me is that when I really have managed to open up and twist all the way to the spine,
yeah.
that also increases the flow of the energy to the crown of my head. So that's another way you can actually know that you have made that connection.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't simply move from fingertip to spine, although that's great if you can get there, but then eventually not only does it go to your spine, but it goes up your spine.
hmm.
So
Cool.
I'll never tell you it's easy, boys. So first I have kind of a short additional comment about twisting. One of the important things is the changeovers from yin to yang meridians. And you want to be able to do that right from the very beginning of the set. And this is one done at every point in God's. So one of the things to do is to go back and start from movement one briefly, just as a twisting practice. And look at movements 1 and 2 and experiment with exploring how those yin and yang changeovers happen in your arms. And I think this is an important point to understand about Qigong, especially God's, because God's ultimately is supposed to contain all of the 16 Neigong. And if you ask, when do I do this Neigong or not do them? The answer is, when don't you do them? So you're doing them in every single movement. You're doing all of them at once. But when you learn, the way of learning is separate and combine. So understand what each of the separate Neigong principles is and then combine it. So now that you have learned it in movement 4, you have to try go back to the other movements and put it into there. And in God's, it's not, as I said, just in movement 4. So certain things are normally introduced in Qigong in the classic way of teaching. Let's take a crazy number for a moment. Let's say you have 100 things you need to do in a Qigong. You can't somehow show somebody 100 things or 1,000 things in one class and expect them to do it. That's, of course, ridiculous. But the way it works is that certain movements of, or sometimes even entire Qigong sets, make it particularly easy to learn how to do a certain aspect of Neigong. Whereas if you did it with other movements or in other sets, it would make it a lot harder. So the reason why the order of these things has happened in the way that they're happening is simply the way that the body can absorb them. No, they can absorb one stage and have minimal resistance to doing the next one. So certain forms of Qi movement are better done in certain types of sets or with certain types of sets. There is a reason why there is a specific order. It's a bit like you have a series of 1,000 doors and you want to walk through all of them. What key unlocks the door? Which door, and which is the easiest? And what key unlocks the next door and is therefore the easiest? And that's the reason why when these forms were originally designed, they had an order of how they were done. They weren't done randomly. They were done in an order which was based upon how each door opened, making it easy to open the next one, which makes it easier then to open up the next. And that's why these have been done in this specific order. So we're going to look now at shoulders and hips. And the shoulders and hips and pelvis are actually fairly complex joints in the body. In the principle of the 6 combinations, we have to coordinate the shoulders and the hips and pelvis. For anyone who has done body work or been involved with surgery, They know the ways in which these are connected, and they are incredible. And the Chinese really looked at this a lot, not just in terms of anatomy, but especially in terms of how the qi is coordinated between the two. So looking at the shoulder, it's an interconnected system that's fairly complex. When a shoulder is really bad, it is one of the harder things to fix in the human body, mainly because they're so interconnected to other things. So first you have the shoulder blades, the scapula, and then you have the way the shoulder blades are connected to the ribs. And then you have to know how to open and close both the shoulder blades and the ribs. And then you have the acromioclavicular joint up here at the top. And then the way that the point of the shoulder's nest is connected to another point deep inside the armpit. And then there is a point right beneath the scapula. So all of them have to open and close, and that really is a lot. So the shoulder girdle has become a term for all of the stuff that's inside your shoulder. It becomes one big piece. So it is important to keep in mind that the shoulders are not really one thing. In terms of movement, most people, when asked, what is your shoulder, would just put their hand on the point of the shoulder. Now, from a Qigong point of view, the main thing about your shoulder is your shoulder blades, because that is what connects your shoulders to your spine. You cannot move your arm or anything from your elbow back without your shoulder blades moving. You can move your wrists and elbows, but you cannot leave your shoulder blades still and really move shoulders that much. So the shoulder blades are important. And for many years, Bruce called them the lost joints of the body because most people didn't really realize that their shoulder blades are the base of the shoulder. Now, your shoulder blades also connect to your ribs. So when you have a shoulder problem, it could be that something is frozen in the ribs. And there are several ways that the shoulder blades can open and close. In terms of opening and closing the shoulder blades, it is a question that something is being still and something is moving away from that point and coming back to it. Opening is moving away, closing is coming back to it. Or you may be condensing. Now, what is usually done to try and give people a basic sense of their shoulder blades is to do some very simple rotations and movements. So let me just show you the various movements that we can have with the scapula, shoulder blades. And not that I think this is going to be terribly clear on Zoom, but I will try to make it as much as I can. So most people, when they lift their shoulders, use the deltoids, and you get this movement. The shoulders go up and the shoulders go down. But that's moving from the muscles. If you move from the scapula, you can get very much the same movement, but it is being rooted in the movement of the scapula themselves. So that's one movement, up and down. The scapula also can move away from the ribs and towards the ribs. And that's obviously very small and very subtle, but it is possible for the scapula to move back and to move forward. And they can open, going back away from the ribs, and close, coming into the ribs. And of course, the one that we have talked about a lot already is the movement of the scapula in to the spine and away from the spine. So we can have the scapula moving into the spine, closing, and moving away from the spine, opening. And that, of course, we've worked on quite a bit. What is often a little more difficult for people is rotation. And so the scapula can actually go back and up and forward and down. They can actually circle, and they can go in the other direction. And you have to root that movement in the scapula, not in the muscles of the shoulder. And of course, then also you can do them, each one going in the opposite circle. And those can go the other direction. So those are all the various ways that the scapula can move. Let's see. So how do you open and close? So in other traditions where we work on opening and closing, we spend several segments on the shoulders because they are that complicated. But here, the one thing I'm going to do is just try to get you into it without going into all the technical stuff which we do in our other programs. So you can either stand or sit in doing this. So the first thing is to do pretty much doing what I did before, but try to see if you can connect to your shoulder blades and have your shoulder blades lift the shoulders and pull them down. So go in two directions with the shoulder blades. So as we're doing this, if you have any questions, just speak up. So do you feel you can feel that one?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so, David.
Okay. Um, Now, when you are really lifting from your shoulder blades, one of the things you're probably eventually going to feel is that you'll feel something stretching all the way to the top of your head. And when you really push the shoulder blades down, you should feel that going down through your waist into your hips and eventually even into your feet. And that's because of the way they are anatomically connected through your body. So then the second one you want to do is to have your shoulder blades go out and forward away from the spine. So the thing that we have done previously, so the shoulder blades moving away from the spine, which is opening, and then bring them back, the shoulder blades pushing into the spine, towards the spine, closing. And that I would presume you can do without too much difficulty.
Right.
But then I want you to see if you can feel your shoulder blades push away from the ribs, which is opening, push back away from the ribs, and then bring your shoulder blades forward towards the ribs, closing. And this should not feel the same as having the scapula go towards the spine and away from the spine. It is a different feeling. This actually was probably the more difficult movement for me, I will say. And now circle the scapula, causing the shoulders to go back and up, forward and down. Really keeping the movement rooted in your scapula. And then reverse the direction. And then try alternating. One shoulder going up as the other goes down, but still circling from the scapula. So the first one we did where we were lifting from the shoulder blades and pushing down from the shoulder blades is really a very good kind of basic exercise to loosen your shoulder blades. So just relax. Any questions about that? That's the kind of thing that I can kind of see you doing it on Zoom, but it's not like it is when you're here.
Right.
Not quite certain about the movement away from the ribs and toward the ribs.
Yep.
Thought I was doing it, but it sort of felt a little too muscular to be right.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very subtle.
Okay.
It's it really feels more like a pulsing than a significant movement, although there is very subtly a movement. It, you know, it's the kind of thing, if you were here, you could put your hands on my back and feel what I'm doing. That might or might not help with that. It's a very subtle movement because, well, particularly for Bill and I, maybe not so much for Adam, we tend to, our scapula tend to be tighter as we have gotten older, although I've worked for some time to loosen mine up, so I probably have a little more movement. But it's not an easy movement, and it's very subtle. I don't know what else to tell you about it. It's
okay. I wasn't, I felt pretty confident in the rest, but not that one. So
yeah. Well, I think, as I said, if you can feel the energetic movement in the others, the opening and closing, which of course creates the pulsing of the energy, you're looking for the same pulsing of the energy as you do this.
okay.
But it's so that what you're going to feel is not so much the physical movement as the energetic movement.
Okay.
Yep. Anybody have any other questions at the moment? Okay, so if we look at the pelvis and the hips, the other half of that 6 combinations connection here, the two have to coordinate with each other. And all those parts down there, just like the shoulder, it's not just one solid thing. You know, you have the very top of the pelvic bone, which is pretty easy to locate. You can feel that. And if you go down, you come to your hip socket. So the hip socket is part of your pelvis, obviously. So I'd like you to stand up, and we're going to try to do some exercises, not only to stretch and open the quad and the pelvis, but also to begin to feel the energetic movement through there. So just so you're clear, feel that top of the pelvic bone on the sides, and then just go down until you can feel the point of where your hip socket is. So now what you want to do is you want to actually lift the pelvic bone up and then let it push down. And so you want to really, again, now these movements are going to be very subtle also. But you can feel the pelvis lift up and then push down. And then roll the pelvis up towards your head. So tuck it forward and up, and then roll it back and down. So let them roll forward and up, and back and down. And these movements are really just so you know where they are. So you have the front of the pelvis that can lift and can go down, but you also have something else directly attached to your pelvis. And that is your sacrum, your tailbone. And each side of your sacrum is what is commonly called the wings of the pelvis. And so you have to be aware of not only the front and the sides of your pelvis, but also the wings. Because the wings start tilting. If the wings start tilting, they have a nasty habit of causing the sacrum to go out of place. So this can be a real problem. So what you want to be aware of is when you do every one of the movements of God's, especially movement 4, there has to be some internal movement inside of the wings. There has to be some internal movement in the hip socket. And there needs to be some internal movement in the front of the pelvis. So you don't have to do it to an extreme degree. It doesn't have to be much. But what is important is that these parts of your pelvis must have some movement. In Qigong, you're not going to make your pelvis come up and go down on the sides that much, but you want to do it so you can get this sense of what all these things are that can move and to what degree they can move. So if one of these parts doesn't move, you can get problems. And we'll look at the perineum in a minute. So relax for a moment. So let me David, where are you? There you are. So again, I don't unfortunately think you'll be able to see very clearly here on Zoom, but here is getting the sides of the pelvis to go up and down, and it's very small, but it is opening and closing there. So, well, I think that was all I meant to do there. So your perineum has to stay open the whole time, of course. You're aware of this, but when the two sides come down to the perineum, there is a ring at the perineum, and that ring has to have some movement. But if it's too much, it causes the pelvis to go up on one side or the other, and that's not good. So your perineum has to stay open the whole time you're doing all the movements in GODS, and you should not feel any strain in the center of your perineum from the ring that connects the two sides of your pelvis. That's very important. If you get your Kwa opening and closing in Qigong, you want to have your Kwa link to all these various things that we've just described. So the Kwa is going to control exactly how much they open and close. So if you were to try and focus on the individual bones and parts of the pelvis, the odds are you would actually unbalance your pelvis because it's hard to keep it all together. But simply having your Kwa close and open it will cause everything inside your pelvis to move. So we also have another thing that's a little bit tricky, and this too you will be happening in GODS. So again, I don't think you can see this, but this is when I wish you were here. I'll put my hands here so that maybe you can get some sense of it. So my pelvis is expanding a little to the side and then contracting in. So there is movement in this way. It's expanding out and closing in. It's very small, but it is present. And this has to happen in order for not only your hip sockets to move, but virtually everything in your pelvis to move. So that when you're going out to the sides in movement number 3, you close your pelvis, but then you go to 6 o'clock and you open it. And you open it sometimes and you close it sometimes because the pelvis is actually the big joint in your body that really tells all your other joints how to move. So your Kwa also does that, but it also does that for the cavities in your body. Your Kwa tells the soft tissues how to open and close, but the pelvis tells the bones what to do. Now you want your shoulders and everything in your pelvis to pulse in coordination. Excuse me. So they are going to open and close to the same degree. If the shoulders go 5%, the pelvis goes 5%. If the shoulders go 90%, the pelvis goes 90%. So this firmly connects the chi flow as well as the anatomy between the bottom and the top of your body. This is the last of the 6 combinations, the shoulders and the hips. In some ways, when doing Qigong, it is the most important one, because if the center does not hold, you can be pretty sure that the arms are not either. And it is very, very excuse me, it's a very, very funny thing that when you can get your lower dantian to pulse in one direction with your pelvis, this does an immense amount for grounding a human being's excuse me, legs into the earth. Enables them to not just feel very solid, but to be very solid. So if someone were pushing against you and you didn't have that, they would push you right over. But if you do have it, then they would not be able to push you at all. It creates a certain amount of strength and resistance inside the body. So we want the Kwa to be the leader of the movement. And we've talked about this somewhat before, but we really want the Kwa to be able to cause the arms and the rest of the body to lower and to raise, and to really make that Kwa the very center of our movement. So it's the center of each of our God's movements. Excuse me. Causing the arms to move and the pelvis to move in coordination. So, sorry. So what I'd like you to do is to start actually at the moment with movement 2, and really see if you can get the Kwa to be the leader of that movement and to cause everything else in your body to open and close in coordination with it.
Okay.
So you're really trying to connect to having your Kwa cause the arms to rise. and open. And the closing of the quad, draw the arms down and in. And are your shoulder blades moving? So movement 2 is one of the places where clearly the shoulder blades should be circling. So you want the quad and the shoulder blades to be working in coordination with each other. All right, pause for a moment. So did you feel you could do that with that movement?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. So now go to 4,
Okay.
which has considerably different considerations in it, and see how you can get the quad to coordinate and lead that movement. Okay, so pause for a moment. So, Bill, you want to think about the opening, the extending of the arms and arms, shoulders, and quad are going all the way to the top. You tend to get about halfway up and start to bend your arms again. Do you want me to show you what I'm? Yeah, good. Yeah, you have to let them go on up and fully extend, and then they can bend all the way down to the dantian, and then they start to extend, and they keep extending all the way up to the top, because that's what the qua is doing,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Actually, getting the qua involved in that helped with an issue that I've been having, which is standing up.
Oh, good.
So the qua governed that a lot better than
Yep. Yeah, you have to get the coordination of the standing up and squatting down or folding down at the same, clearly working with the shoulders and arms and qua equally. So good. All right. So either of you have any other questions on this at the moment?
no.
No, no, I don't think so right now. I think, watching the recording and reading the notes will help. I think, the demonstration on, the, having a hard time finding my words, the, pelvis opening to the side and closing in was,
Yeah.
I think, really helpful, and that feels like it helps feel deeper into that entire space of the body.
Yep.
And it makes it easier to connect, I think, with twisting through the glutes into the legs.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of feel the whole pelvic girdle open up and close, and feel that the perineum energy flow through that area a lot better.
Yep.
So that
Good.
was good.
Great. Okay. Well, gentlemen, I think that's it for the gods part here.
Okay.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Yep. You too.
Have a good week.
Yes, you too, David. Yep. Bye.
Take care, Bill.
Yeah. Hope you feel better.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting there.
Well, you've had it before, right?
No, this is my first time.
Oh, your first time. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well, let your body tell you, it may want to rest for longer than you would like it to, so.
yeah, that's what I'm finding, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good week.
All right.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
So obviously all of this applies to the form too.
Sure.
um,
That's
that's probably actually speaking to the choir, as it were. I think you probably know that already.
yeah. I guess that in the form, I guess how does some of the stuff apply now that you're doing different things with the legs? I think in the it's easy to think about the hips opening and closing and expanding to the sides when you're kind of doing the same thing on both legs, and your feet are stationary.
Yep.
But now that you're transferring weight, switching legs, moving,
Yep.
are each
They are
inside of the body kind of doing different things? You can be
often,
expanding to one side of the, okay,
most of the time, yes.
okay.
So when you work on that in the form, it is, again, we get to separate and combine. Really, the way to do that is to follow one side, one one arm or one leg, and then do another one, and then put them together. Because you can't you can't keep track of all four of those, because sometimes the arms are doing opposite to what the legs are doing, and they're both doing different on both sides. So you're really looking at four different combinations
Right.
at a time, often with that. So you really, to work on that, you have to not try to do it all at once, because it'll drive you crazy.
Right.
Been there, done that. I learned my lesson with that. But I think one of the really helpful things is to really get the qua to drive the movement. And ultimately, it goes beyond that to being the dantian or the spine, but the qua is very important in that too. I mean, it's also coordinating, but the leader, obviously, or not obviously necessarily, but ultimately is either the dantian or the spine, and it's different at different times sometimes. But working on getting the qua to be the leader to begin with leads into those more easily.
Okay.
So that's kind of it's really kind of a good way of working on that coordination.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I think I try to think about the dantian as the leader of the band, but maybe that's kind of jumping the gun, even at this stage.
It's a good
Back
idea
up to the qua.
to work with the qua for a while, and then let that transition to the dantian.
Okay.
Simply because the necessity of getting the 6 combinations to all coordinate absolutely together needs to be really established before you are trying to lead from the dantian.
Yeah. I found when we were just working now, coordinating the quad and the shoulders, and making sure that the scapula are moving, especially in two, making sure that they're circling. They felt more coordinated really the less I kind of focused and thought about it. I found trying to mentally check to make sure that the scapula were circling and moving
Mhm.
almost got in the way of the energy going from the quad to the shoulders. It seemed to all of a sudden now I was feeling the quad, but there was no connection there anymore. And it seemed to work better to just focus on the quad really pumping the energy and the movement and just letting the shoulders do whatever they needed to do without thinking about, at this part of the movement should, which way should the scapula be going and
Mm.
moving?
Yeah.
Just sort of having a light focus on trying to stay relaxed, open, loose, and lengthening through that area.
Yep.
So is that kind of the way to go about it through the form too, now
It,
that things are
it,
doing different things,
yeah.
trying to really get too involved in, well, where is the scapula going here in this part of the movement?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Right on. Um, by focusing on the qua and letting that lead everything else, you don't need all you need to do is to be aware that everything is moving in coordination and not trying to be aware of every specific piece.
Mm,
Unless
mm,
if something is out of coordination, then it should stick out in some way so that you say, wait a minute, something is not right.
mm, mm. Okay. Yeah.
So you're looking for that absolute coordination of every element and letting the qua be the leader and cause everything to be in coordination helps to arrive at that.
Mm, okay.
Because you can't, you're absolutely right. You can't think about, am I opening and closing my wrists and ankles together? Do I have my knees and elbows in the exact relationship to each other? Do I have my shoulders and hips working correctly together? And are all of those parts coordinated, thinking about all of it? You can't do that
Mm, mm-hmm.
effectively. But you can have the qua tell all of those parts to move together.
Mm, right.
And then if, as I said, if something is not coordinated, then it begins to you begin to become apparent, aware of that, and then you can make whatever correction is necessary.
Okay.
It's
Hmm.
it's just a process.
Yeah. There's always more.
Yeah. So are you still feeling pretty weak?
Today's the first day that I really feel like I have any energy. So
Uh,
uh I'm getting better. I think Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I basically just slept.
yeah.
Um, I started working from home on Monday, and like Monday was the first day that I didn't sleep a good portion of the day in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
But I think I lasted till about 8 o'clock and then slept, almost 11 hours or whatever. So yeah, today's kind of the first day where I feel like not back to normal, but you have a little more energy and a little more focus and a little more mental clarity.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that continues. Um, I was on Paxlovid. Today's my last dose of that. So
Uh,
yeah,
oh, I'm
getting
sorry.
there.
Sorry you
But
had to go through that.
Yeah, thank you. You know, it is what it is. Did a good job avoiding it for a long time, so
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I caught it now. Because if it was this bad now, after all the vaccines and boosters and with the antiviral drugs too, you know, I can't imagine what it was, you know, 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Right. So,
grateful I was able to avoid it until now. So
yeah, because you certainly must have been in its presence previous to this.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So
So, well, good. Well, I don't want to overdo you.
all
Um,
right. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. It's
well, I
good
just,
seeing you.
yeah, yeah. So take care.
You too. Take care
Feel
now.
better.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you
Bye
soon.
bye.